So the big question is this: how can dyslexics like us create a place, a community, a tribe where people at any stage of life can come and solve any challenge, amplify their strengths, and ultimately help them become who they were meant to be? Or in other words, conquer their dyslexia. That is the question, and this show is the answer. My name's Theo Goff, and welcome to the Conquering Dyslexia podcast. Hey guys, I hope we're alright. I hope we're doing really well. I'm really excited to share this message with you, and I'm excited to share a message with you that's step 9 in conquering your dyslexia, like the 12 steps to conquer your dyslexia. What I talk about in the book, and in like the 12 steps I believe that you need to do to conquer your dyslexia, in step 9 what I talk about is the gift of grit, and how dyslexics have the gift of grit at such a strong level, like naturally have it because of the environment they grew up in, because of the struggles they've had. They had to overcome certain things. They had to have things thrown in their face they had to overcome. So they're used to failure. They're used to working hard. They're used of trying different things and not working, and then working on problems. And all this builds up to a very strong gift of grit. And dyslexics make people work, like think a lot more clearer, and it's a lot more smart. But before I talk about that, because basically in the book there's two concepts with the gift of grit, and really understanding, having a certain mindset so you can navigate this world in the best way possible. And in the book I talk about two stories. And by the way guys, before I talk about it, if you want to get the book, conqueringdyslexia.net/book, get the free audiobook of it. I want to give it out because I know it would change so many people's lives. So in this, there's a story that how I sort of like really encapsulated it and discovered it. It's a story of this guy that basically I used to do swimming, be a swimming instructor, not an instructor, a lifeguard at a swimming pool. And I remember doing this, depending on where you work, can be either an easy job or a really busy job depending on the swimming pool. I'm working at this place, simple little swimming pool, only like 20 metres across, nothing happening. It was in like David Lloyd, it was like this private gym, whatever. So I was lifeguarding there. I chatting to the swimming teacher, and she was chatting away, saying all these things. Swimming teacher, like swimming instructor. And she was saying a story about her son. Saying, because I'm talking about dyslexia, the son's got dyslexia. I was like, oh my God, how's it going? It's like, well, it's not going too well because my son, he started a job. He started a job actually as a lifeguard at some other pool. And as it was going, he was starting the job. I was really excited and really wanted to get doing it and understand the things as a young, you want to earn some money. And so he was doing it, and the boss there, he wasn't the most sort of like happy conversational person. He wasn't the most understanding person. And the son mentioned at the interview that he was dyslexic and he needed some help, with certain bits of detail. And then sort of the boss showed him around, showed him all the things to do. This is how you do this is how you do the cleaning, this is how, you set up, this is how you sort of lay down. And I think it was his first or second day, I can't remember. But anyway, he was there closing. He had to close the pool by himself. It's quite early on for him to close the pool by himself. But the boss said to him, okay, look, here's the cleaning material. The blue one is for the floor, and the grey one is is for the metalwork for the windows. Do not mix them, whatever you do. Or something along those lines. But he said, do not mix them, all right? So he done all that, and said he can read it on the bottle when he moved on. And later that day, when the boss went home, it was about 9 p.m. He was trying to close up all the things. And as it came time for him to clean the floor, he was like, okay, let's clean the floor. Okay, the cleaning materials are in here. He looked at them, and he saw, and he realised he didn't remember what one was what. He didn't remember what cleaning materials cleaned the floor and what cleaned the glass. And he got a bit scared. And he tried to read the bottle. He tried to remember. And he just didn't understand anything. And he got scared. He got, nervous. And you can guess what happened. He used the wrong cleaning material. And yet, even though he could have talked to the receptionist, I don't know if he used the wrong cleaning material because he was shy. He hoped for the best. And the next day, the boss called him. Was like, you better get in work now into my office. And what turned out happening, because of the cleaning material he used, kept on giving people little mini burns on their feet and felt like tingly and a little bit of rashes. And complaint after complaint went into the office, and it was bad for the eyes and all that. And so the boss was dealing with so much stuff because of this young kid who used the wrong cleaning materials. So he brought the boy into the office, and the boss was like, "How dare you use the wrong cleaning products? How stupid are you? How have you got this far in life? You mean not knowing how to do these simple things? How stupid are you? How pathetic!" And he really tore into this little kid, and like this 16-year-old was just like, "What?" And he just didn't know how to react, and like he wasn't fired that day, but he didn't know what came over him, and he was going back home just in tears. Just think what happened about this boss slaying into him and really tearing him apart. And he got home, he just cried to his mum and said to mum the exact story that I'm telling you now about everything that happened. The mum was actually taken back. The mum was the swimming teacher I'm talking to, was taken back and basically saying to me how horrible of this boss to do these things, even though he knew he had dyslexia, even though, you know what I mean, like how horrible of him not understanding his disability. And my reaction was different than what she expected. And my reaction was, and so she basically said, "What do you think, Theo?" And like, assuming that I would agree with her, so yes, the boss is horrible and mean. I turned around and said, he was right. The boss, you mean, said the right things. The boss, you mean, the son did make a big mistake. The people's foot did get burned because of him. You know what I mean? And she got talking about like, what? What do you mean? Like, what do you mean the boss was right? I was like, hear me out. Hear me out. He's not. Like, hear me out. Basically what I'm saying is that your son made a big mistake and he has to own up to that mistake. And look, the way I see problems is either two ways you can look at it. The first way is you can, when problems happen, when people moan at you, when people say like to discriminate against you, when you make problems and it causes a bad result, you can look at two ways. You can either blame the people, blame everything else, and blame your dyslexia for it not working. For example, blaming the boss for not, double checking and showing to you 3, 4, 5 times what cleaning materials. You can blame, and everything when you blame, you feel good, and you feel like, and you feel different emotions. You may feel angry, may feel frustrated, but ultimately you don't put the blame on yourself, you put the blame on other people. Or you can take responsibility and have the blame yourself, and realise you need to do something better. Yes, you have dyslexia. Yes, you have these difficulties. They may find it difficult than other people, but ultimately realise you have to find a way around it, and you can. Because his name was Charlie, and he could do different things. He could ask the receptionist about what colours, he could write it down, or do little colours, say blue, and write it down. He could do different strategies. Now, granted, he may not have thought of it at that time, but something for him to learn and move forward in the future. And once he's done that, he can move forward and progress. But if he spends time blaming his boss, blaming everyone else for the mistakes he make, you'll carry on making mistakes and carry on blaming everyone else and thinking that the world is mean and cruel. Because you don't learn from your mistakes. Because there's one saying that it doesn't sound nice. It doesn't sound, all motivational, but it's true. I believe it's true, and it's fundamental, and it's key for really having empowerment in your life and really conquering your dyslexia, is realising this. The world won't change just for you. You have to change for the world. Realise you have to change. If something's not working, and yes, you may find it harder than other people because of your dyslexia, doesn't mean the whole system has to change. Sometimes it means you just need to get better. And I know this is uncommon. People don't say this up. People don't like saying it. But as a dyslexic person yourself, yourself, the only way you can live a better quality of life is by realising the world won't change for me. I have to change for the world and get better. Get better skills. With all problems, there's only 2 ways you can fix any problem. There's 2 ways. 1, change solve the problem, get better, do that skill. Physically solve the problem. Or 2, think about it differently. For example, it's raining. You don't want to get rain on you. Okay, there's 2 ways of solving it. 1, solve the problem. Don't find a way not to get rain on you. Have a umbrella. Or number 2, learn to enjoy the rain. Change the way you think about it. That can solve any problem out there. But if you can blame the rain for raining, the problem won't go away. It will stay there. And really realizing this concept about how to learn from problems is such key. And if you don't learn from problems, you won't develop what we're going to call the gift of grit. Because I was talking to a swimming teacher a couple months later, talking about dyslexia and the whole thing, and she shared with me this story that I'm going to share with you now. She said that I was saying how dyslexic wires differently and how it's a gift and how it makes you stronger. Gift of grit. Explaining the whole thing to her. And she went to me and said the story about, the kid's dead died a couple, 6 months ago, and maybe a bit longer, and they dealt with it completely differently because Charlie had an older daughter. An older daughter, and when the dad passed away, he dealt with it. The daughter dealt with it, like when he passed away, the daughter dealt with it in terms of like she didn't know how to cope with these emotions, and it must have been awful for it. But the way she sort of dealt with it by escaping, by hanging around with the wrong people, by sort of like one day she would just go out with a new group of people and not come back till like 9 p.m. then hang out and not come back to 10, and hang out and not come back to 11, and get later and later and later. I think she said times where she's gone for a couple of days in a row, and all these things would have happened, and yet she's sort of had these addictions and been on these things, and I went through quite a bad journey. But the son, Charlie, the one who's dyslexic, he dealt with it differently, because when the dad died, he spent all of his time and all of his energy in his room. Literally, he would come home from school, walk upstairs, close the door and lock himself, not physically lock, but go in his room and immediately come out to grab some food and go back up there. But all he do inside his room is study. He apply all his energy, all his focus into work. And he passed unbelievable stats, like spent hours and hours a day in there. But the thing is, they had completely different coping strategies. So it was like, does this have anything to do with dyslexia? And I said, this has everything to do with dyslexia. Your son dealt with it differently because he has different emotional strengths. Because he's used to deal with basically, horrific events. He's used to be able to deal with negative things. Because I understand that having your father die is incredibly heartbreaking and incredibly sad, and I can't imagine what it feels like. But because you've been able to deal with stuff in the past of feeling different, of failing over and over and over again, develop coping strategies when you're early on, later on you'll be able to develop coping strategies. Because you have developed the gift of grit. And it's such a gift. Having this strength in you to be able to move forward, to be able to do these things is so good. And it's such a key skill in life. And I know I'm just touching on it really sort of like lightly here, but it's so important. Really understanding the two things is the gift of grit. But in order to have gift of grit, you have to learn from your mistakes. And the way you do that is realizing the world won't change for you. You have to change the world. And you have to get better and improve. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with getting better and improving. It's nothing. It's not. And really realizing, people say, I had to work 10 times harder than everyone else, or you mean I work really hard. Is that a bad thing? Is finding something hard to do a bad thing? It may feel hard in the moment, but maybe later in life it'll give you strength to do something else. Sometimes you have to really question the scenarios and the assumptions we make in our head. Therefore, because questioning the assumption that takes us 3-4 times longer to read something or to write something, that's bad, that's negative. Why is that bad? Why is that negative? Really question it. I think it really make you grow in a lot of way. But guys, if you haven't got the audiobook, go and conquerdyslexia.net/book. Get the audiobook. I'm so excited. I spent a lot of time, a lot of money getting it for you, to give it for you completely for free. So if you haven't got it yet, go and get it. I don't know why you haven't got it yet. I've been talking about it enough. But I'll see you guys again soon.